Hello and welcome to the Reviews Brothers, where, among other things, I've been looking at all the systems I owned and I'm choosing the 10 games that I look back at most fondly. This time round, it's the mighty PlayStation 1. Now, I didn't actually own one of these until much later, as I was more interested in Nintendo stuff, but I played a lot of the PlayStation at various friends' houses, and I will warn you now, this means you're going to be very angry with my list because it doesn't include the games that you're thinking of. Soz. So without further ado, how about I shut up, you press that subscribe button, and we take a look at some games. First up is Lone Soldier, which I'm pretty sure is the first ever PlayStation game that I actually played at my friend Blake's house. And yes, I'm well aware that this is probably why I still think it's great, despite, the game itself. It's a third-person action game where you take control of Soldier Military-son, a buff commando who is in fact the lone soldier sent out to gun down waves of enemies who are no doubt up to all sorts of bad stuff. The levels are kind of similar to how Crash Bandicoot works, with narrow corridor-style levels filled with enemies like soldiers, tanks, drug dealers, and even aliens. But this time, instead of spinning them away like Brian Eno, you use a variety of automatic weapons, rocket launchers, flamethrowers, and grenades. Your default weapon is an Uzi, and it does do a good job of getting rid of most of the bad guys. It's got unlimited ammo and can be fired in bursts. The other weapons all have limited ammo, but you can carry as much as you can find, which is nice. You can switch between weapons with the square button, and you'll actually find that certain weapons are better in certain situations thanks to the difference in range and power. Graphics wise, the game is not going to win any awards. It looks kind of bad actually, very blocky. You can tell it's an early game for the system, and this applies to the music and sound as well. But there's something kind of charming about it that I still really like. Again, it's probably the nostalgia goggles that I have for the game. The enemies themselves are pretty dumb, they just tend to stand still and shoot at you, and a lot of the time you have no option to soak up damage because there's very few places for you to hide. You can walk and run, that's about it, there's no jump or crouch here. You make your way through various jungle settings, cities, enemy bases, and even a spaceship on your lone mission to remain lonely and kill all the people in the process. One glaring omission is that you can't strafe at all. These shoulder buttons let you do precise aiming to the left and right, and each shoulder button is a different speed. These are handy for getting the pesky enemies that are hiding behind trees, but the fact that there's no strafe at all is a bit odd really. Other than that though, the controls are fine, and the game really just boils down to walking in a straight line, killing everything you see. There are a few health and ammo power-ups that are airdropped in for you, and you get a few lives and can even save your game. I'm aware that this isn't going to win any awards by any means, but I really do have a soft spot for it, and I do enjoy coming back to it again and again every time I get the PlayStation out. Silent Bomber is an awesome 3D action game where you play as the stupidly named Utah, who is the Silent Bomber. You're part of an explosive task force who are sent out to bring peace to the galaxy. Unfortunately, a bunch of bastards have created an army of robot soldiers and mutants, so you're sent in to bomb them. Silently, I'm assuming. But it doesn't look like Utah got that message, he's pretty loud. Now, I will try to explain the gameplay, which isn't actually that complicated, but I'm crap at explaining things. Every level has an objective, which is that something needs blowing up. Of course, it's not that easy and you'll need to deal with hundreds of enemies, blockades and massive bosses along the way. Thankfully, you've got an unlimited supply of bombs, and you start out with 3. Pressing the square button drops a bomb. You can drop 3 at a time, and you do have an unlimited amount, either in different places, or you can stack them on the same spot where you'll get a larger blast radius. Alternatively, you can hold the square button to get a target reticle thing. Point this at an enemy or something that can be blown up and you'll lock onto it, then quickly hammer the square button to fire the bombs onto whatever you're locked onto. This lock-on mechanic does have limited range though, and once all your bombs are placed, you just need to press the triangle button to detonate them. Of course, for maximum enjoyment, you want to blow up as many enemies with as few bombs as possible to create combos, though this only gives you points and doesn't really do anything other than look cool. As well as your regular bombs, there are 3 special types. There's fire, which does just that, it leaves a flame behind, dealing damage over time for a short while. Electricity, which can short circuit enemies, stunning them for a few seconds, and then there's the gravity bomb, which slows enemies down. You can use your selected special bomb with the circle button, and you can do a combination of all your bombs if you like if you cycle through them quick enough, though special bombs are limited and you'll need to collect them in the levels. As you explore and blow shit up, you'll also find mod chips. You want to find as many of these as you can, as they're used to upgrade the number of bombs you can drop, the range of your lock-on, and your shield, which essentially means more health. These are automatically upgraded as you collect them, but what's cool is that you can pause the game at any point and reallocate your chips, so you can sacrifice health in order to drop more bombs, or you can have a longer range and vice versa. This is actually something that you will want to do, as there's times in the game where there are flying enemies that are really far away, so you'll need to drop your health down and increase your range, which is a pretty cool mechanic. Other times you might just want to tank your way through an area, so you just pump everything into your shields and maybe a couple of bombs and just rely on close range attacks. It's really cool and fun to figure it out. Graphically, the game is fine, it's got some really cool explosions and the lighting effects are pretty good, but more importantly, it all runs smoothly. The frame rate can dip, but never too much, and it never affects the gameplay. Most of what you see are robots and they do get a bit samey. Also, the environments are mostly grey and brown, but the explosions do look awesome. The controls are really great as well and incredibly responsive, and after just a few minutes you'll be used to how it all works and you'll be blowing things up easily. I could rave about this game for ages, but all I'll say is that it really is an awesome action game that I wish would get a remaster, or even a sequel. I would say this is a must-have for any PS1 owner. Gekido Urban Warriors is a 3D beat-em-up that sees you running around various urban locations, kicking the crap out of everyone and anyone. There is a story here, which is your usual one of bad gangs and crime bosses, so you're a bunch of cops and vigilantes and you have to beat the crap out of everyone. Did I say that already? What's nice is that you get 4 characters to choose from, with a few more unlockable ones as well. As you'd expect, each character has his or her own stats, with some being faster, stronger, and so on. You know the drill. All the characters play really well and do have their own movesets, and that's something that sets this game apart. There's a ton of different combos that you can do. These are unlocked as you play and reach certain score milestones, and they get crazy complicated. In fact, I'd actually say that some of the combos are overly complicated, which is something that you could say about the controls overall. The game uses every button on the controller. All 4 face buttons are different punches and kicks, L and R are to jump and crouch, and you also have buttons that activate specials and make you block. When you start playing, it can be very confusing. When you get a new combo, it does tell you at the bottom of the screen and flashes up and shows you how to pull it off. These start out fine, but soon become combinations of 5 or 6 button presses, including holding L or R and then tapping the other one. Yeah, you can forget most of the combos. Of course, the more complicated they are though, the more damage they tend to do, but the chances are you'll find a few that work for you and just stick with them. Annoyingly, there is no move list or anything like that in the pause menu, so you really need to memorise the combos. It also means that you're sort of levelling up, and you have to stay playing as your chosen character for the whole playthrough. This does kind of make sense though, as the levels are played in a different order depending on the characters that you choose. You get some cool environments from cities, docks, industrial estates, skyscrapers, and of course an elevator. The graphics here are excellent actually, with loads of detail, and the animation is super smooth. There's always a load of enemies after you at once, and though there is a bit of slowdown, it's never too bad. The variety in enemies here is good, with new ones popping up all the time. They come in all shapes and sizes, and have some weapons like guns or knives that you can steal from them. You can also pick up loads of things like boxes and tyres to throw at people. For some reason, these always explode, and I actually found that it did me more damage most of the time, as the enemies are quite relentless, and by the time I'd picked up an object, they were just always over me and kicking my ass. The bosses are also tough bastards, and will take a few tries to beat while you get used to the game. In fact, I haven't actually managed to complete this game yet, and it's one I've had for about 20 years. It's bloody hard and doesn't give you many lives or continues. I have gotten pretty far into it though, and it is definitely beatable. So you can play this in 2-player co-op as well, and it's a lot of fun to learn the combos and kick some butt with a pal. It's also worth mentioning that the soundtrack is all licensed stuff, and while I don't think it really suits the action all that well, it is a great selection of dance and techno that'll get you in the mood. Check this one out when you want to punch someone in the face. Next up is Street Fighter Alpha 3. I've always been a massive fan of the Street Fighter games and got pretty much any of them that I could on the systems that I've owned. It was a close call between this one and Marvel vs. Capcom, which are the two I had on the PlayStation. Actually, I also had Street Fighter EX, which despite what people seem to say, it's actually a great game, and it's the first time Street Fighter went to 3D. Anyway, Street Fighter Alpha 3 is an incredible fighting game that lets you choose from more than 30 characters before taking part in a whole load of one-on-one fights until you get to the evil bastard M. Bison and beat his ass. Or if you haven't played the game in a while like me, get your ass beaten. All of your favourites from Street Fighter 2 are here, as well as a load of new characters, including some from other games like Final Fight. This is a really cool touch, and I remember seeing this for the first time and loving the fact that they tied it all together. Each of the characters plays quite differently from one another with their own fighting styles, special moves and movement. It's really fun to try them all out and to see who works best for you. Each character also has their own story for being involved in the tournament. This is only explained through basic text, but it's a good reason to play through the game with each of the characters just to give them a proper go. I really do like playing as everyone in these games and try not to just stick to one character. As you'd expect with a Street Fighter game, the combat here is really well done and balanced very well. It's easy to pull moves off, and even new players can get away with button mashing to start with. There is a great amount of combos that you can put together, and you have 3 isms that you can choose from that affect your fighting style. These change how your special meter works. You've got A-ism, which is the one I use because I'm a basic bitch and I still don't really understand the others. It's basically a case of you hit your opponent or get hit, and it builds up to 3 levels, and then you can basically pull off super moves. These are cool, though I will say a little underwhelming and nowhere near as flashy as the ones you get in the Marvel crossover games. This one is slightly more based in reality. Then there's X-ism, which I believe is just 1 super bar rather than 3, but the moves are more powerful. And then there's V-ism, which is a crazy one that lets you do all kinds of cool combos for a short while. Now, I know there are actually more things to the different isms, like being able to block in the air with some but not others, block damage being different, counters being available and so on, but I'm nowhere near good enough to notice those kinds of things while I'm playing. But it doesn't matter which one you choose, or which character you choose, you're going to have a good time. There's even a few game modes here. There's the usual arcade and versus mode, but there's also a decent training section to learn the moves, as well as a world tour mode where you have kind of RPG elements and can unlock a load of unlockables, including survival mode and dramatic battle mode where you fight in handicap matches among other things. They've done a really great job of including as much content here as possible. Imagine doing that these days. Graphics wise, it just looks great. The 2D sprites all have a ton of detail and look excellent with some really nice animation. I hear the Sega Saturn version is better, but I haven't played that one yet. Couple that with some great control and fantastic versus mode, and this is a game that everyone should enjoy. Time to get crazy now with Bishi Bashi Special. This is a mental mini-game compilation that plays a lot like the WarioWare games from Nintendo. There's no story, instead you just choose a game mode, all of which involve completing a number of mini-games, all of which have requirements to progress. If you fail the minigame, then you lose a life, lose all your lives, and it's game over, obviously. But man, this is one of the most fun, wacky games that I've played on the PlayStation, and it's an absolute blast, especially in multiplayer. The minigames are of course the star of the show, and there's an amazing variety of them that I could never cover them all. You'll be making burger orders for people, jumping through shark-infested water, racing a mini, kung fu fighting, playing Spot the Difference, and so much more. Before each game, you're given the instructions on how to play, so there's never an excuse for you or your friends to say they don't know what the hell they're doing. Though actually playing some of the games can actually be confusing, having said that. The controls here are kind of fine, they're great, and each game tends to use a different setup, and some of them even rely on you knowing the colour of the symbol on the controller, which I did not, so I had to keep looking at the controller to see that the X button was blue, triangles green, etc. The graphics here are fine, they're pretty good, they're a mix of styles and it does work well. Most of it's played for laughs rather than trying to be anything serious. Most of the things here are 2D with polygons thrown in here and there, and the sound design and music is really great as well. Everything has that crazy Japanese game show style to it, and I love it. And honestly, that's pretty much all there is to say about the game. It's one of those things that you just need to go and play, preferably with a friend. But trust me, you will always have a good time when you're doing so. Next up is The Adventures of Little Ralph, a game that was only released in Japan, and I only played it for the first time a couple of years ago thanks to emulation, but immediately loved it. This one sees you playing as Ralph, a hero who's turned into a kid for reasons I don't know because I can't speak Japanese. The thing is, it turns out he doesn't lose any of his hero abilities, he just happens to be a bit shorter, kind of like Goku in Dragon Ball GT. So, as Ralph, you set off across a bunch of levels with your trusty sword, taking down demons and jumping a lot. The graphics here are great, and although there isn't a load of stuff going on in the levels, all the characters look fantastic and the control really damn well. The combat here especially feels very good. You swing your sword to attack, and it has a decent reach and does good damage to most enemies. You can also charge your sword for a more powerful attack. This charge attack does mean that you have to stand still, but you can send enemies flying across the screen and they take out any other enemies they hit along their way. And more importantly, it lets you reflect enemy projectiles, which I'm sure you've guessed comes in very handy, especially against bosses. The levels are all fairly large, with loads of paths that you can take. You'll find power-ups that will give you more powerful attacks, or the ability to shoot fireballs, or even little creatures that will help you out. You can collect fruit for points, and there's often hearts hidden in the levels that appear when you touch a certain spot of the screen or collect a certain amount of fruit. Get 5 hearts and there's an extra life for you. You can't take many hits before you die, basically 2 of them. You have a little blue thing that follows you around. This allows you to take 1 hit, but take a second and you'll lose a life. This does mean the game can be pretty tough later on, especially against bosses. Thankfully though, you do have unlimited continues, though there is no save or password. What's interesting is that the game doesn't break at all either, and every level just goes straight into the next without a screen going black or loading. This is really cool and really makes you follow every part of the journey. My only gripe is that the levels don't get too crazy for most of the game, and you'll be in places like sewers, etc. It would have been nice to see more interesting levels more early on, but it's really just a bit of a nitpick. Again, this is a game that anyone can enjoy without needing to know Japanese. Honestly, this really should have been released everywhere, but I'm guessing Sony's 2D policy held it back at the time. This would have been a great series that probably could have even made the jump to 3D on the PS2. This one is definitely a must-play for any platform game fan. I love it. Time for some more wacky action now with Incredible Crisis. This is a very Japanese game, but was released everywhere. You play as the Taneo family and go through an average day for them. And of course, an average day consists of crumbling workplaces, alien invasions, bank robberies, shrinking to the size of an ant, and more. Which, from what I know, is basically an average day in Japan. Every level is essentially its own minigame with its own controls and objectives to complete. There's no way I can go through them all, but some of the highlights are a dance routine at the start of the game, shooting down rockets heading for a spaceship, escaping giant insects in the garden, and snowboarding away from bank robbers after thwarting their heist. It's all mad, and the game is genuinely funny, and you'll really love the Taneo family, who are just your average family. You play as every member of the family, and the cutscenes, which are very well done, always show how their days are interconnected. The graphics here are fantastic, with great animation and a surprising amount of detail. The sound and music are a real highlight, with the crazy screams and awesome ska soundtrack that plays throughout the game. The controls are the trickiest thing about the game. As every level has its own rules and often different controls, everything is mixed up, and some of them do control better than others, and at times it can seem that there's a bit of a lag, though I was never sure if this was a deliberate choice to make the game just that bit more challenging. And the game really is challenging. Even though it's just minigames, they last a while and are definitely not easy. It's unlikely you'll beat all of them on your first try. Some will take a good few tries to really understand what you need to do. Thankfully, you can save after every few levels, and you can replay them at any point from the menu screen, which is cool. Some of the games do last a bit long for my liking, and they can go on for 5 or 6 minutes, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're playing it does feel like ages. However, this game is an absolute blast to play. It's batshit crazy and actually quite short, but you'll definitely have a good time playing it. It's a good one to play with a group of people. Even though it's a single player game, passing around the controller is a lot of fun. This is another must-have for the system if you ask me. Light gun time now with Time Crisis, and yes, apologies for the mouse cursor, it's the only way I can play the game nowadays as I don't have a CRT or PS1 gun, although I'm sure Belt Buckle Bill would have lent one to me if I'd asked nicely. Anyway, this is Time Crisis, an awesome port of a brilliant arcade game. You are Special Agent Richard Miller, and you've been sent to rescue the President's daughter from an evil bastard and his minions. So you make your way to their island hideout, and you blast your way through an entire army until you get her back. As it's a light gun game, the actual gameplay is pretty simple, but this is the first one I remember playing that included a cover mechanic. All you need to do is point your gun, or mouse cursor I suppose, at the enemies and pull the trigger. You only have one weapon, which is your pistol, and it can fire 6 rounds before needing to be reloaded, and you do this by taking cover. This is where you'll automatically reload. And taking cover obviously has other benefits as well, like helping you not get shot in the face, which can happen a lot. There's loads of enemies coming at you all of the time. And there's a few flavours. There's the blue guys, who are your basic cannon fodder and can usually be left until last if there's other enemies. There's red guys, who are very dangerous and accurate. You want to make sure you take these guys out as quickly as possible and take cover regularly, or they'll pump you full of lead. Then there's guys that pop up with pipes and take a swing at you, various other chaps with machine guns, some that throw grenades, and even armoured ninja men with Wolverine claws. And if you spot the orange guys, you want to try and take them out quickly, as they'll give you an extra 4 seconds for everyone that you kill. As the game alludes to, you only have about a minute or so just to get through any given area, so you need to be fast and accurate with your shooting so you don't run out of time. This also means you can't just take cover like a wuss. Once you've killed everyone, you'll automatically move around the level on the usual light gun sort of path. You make your way across all sorts of places on the island, including gardens, large buildings, construction sites, and so on. They do a nice job of mixing things up and often include bits of scenery that you can shoot to cause an explosion or for something to fall over and kill people quickly. It's fun to find these out. What's cool is that the PS1 version also has a special mode, which is a whole new campaign that sees you go to a hotel that you stayed at where the bed was uncomfortable and they didn't have bacon in the morning buffet. So you go get your gun and head back to teach that hotel owner a lesson. Gameplay here is exactly the same, with you moving around and killing everyone. It's a good thing that this is here though, because the game is actually really short. You can beat both campaigns in under an hour if you're half decent. They are short arcade experiences, but still really damn fun, and I could replay these every day and not get bored. It all looks good as well. There's a few jaggy edges and warping textures, but that's the PS1 for you, and it still looks good with excellent animation. I still love this game. The first House of the Dead and Time Crisis games are my favourite light gun games of all time, and I still can't believe that we don't have some sort of officially supported light gun that works with modern consoles and TVs, so these games could still be made. I'd buy them all. Anyway, Time Crisis is amazing, go play it today. Let's get spooky now with Silent Hill. Now, the PS1 was a really great platformer for games companies figuring out horror, and this is one of my favourites. I will say now that I do actually prefer Resident Evil to Silent Hill, but I actually owned Resident Evil 1 and 2 on the PC, not the PlayStation, which is why they're not featured here. But I remember buying Silent Hill and Ridge Racer 4 on the same day and barely touching Ridge Racer because of this game. You play as Harry Mason, who crashes his car in the foggy town of Silent Hill. Then when he wakes up, his daughter has gone missing, so he has no choice but to explore the creepy town to try and find her. But things are definitely a little odd in Silent Hill, and soon a whole load of monsters appear and everything goes to shit. Silent Hill is a relatively large place, and you'll need to explore the streets looking for items and clues, and of course solving very cryptic puzzles. The town itself sort of acts as a hub world, where you'll eventually learn where more clues are, for example the school, sewers and the hospital. Then you'll need to head to these locations, which kind of act as the main levels. This is where the majority of the puzzles and action takes place, and what's cool is that they start out creepy but kind of normal looking, but eventually the whole world turns upside down into a strange metal landscape that's very creepy and packed with metaphors. There's plenty of enemies here, and actually Harry is refreshingly competent for a horror game character. He's nimble enough for a game like this, and you get a few guns throughout the game, and they're quite generous with the ammo here as well. As well as this, you'll find pipes and knives that you can use, so basically you always have a weapon, and even the melee weapons are actually quite effective here. The combat is a little clunky with the aiming and shooting and using your weapons, but actually it helps with the atmosphere, because even though you always have a weapon, there's definitely times where you don't want to fight enemies and you need to run away from them. As well as enemies, you do meet a few sort of friendly faces, and I say sort of because this town attracts a strange sort of person. There's characters that will help you out, and some that seem good, but are just a little off. Again, there's a lot of subtext in this game, and I definitely didn't understand it when I first played it, but I actually played through this game quite recently with some friends, and it does a great job of showing trauma and guilt. The hardest part of the game, though, has to be the puzzles, which are often incredibly cryptic. You'll find riddles to solve that basically tell you the order to press buttons or something like that, and if you're a stupid person like me, it can be tough to figure them out, so trial and error is often required. Also, when you're in the main levels, like the school, the game does turn into a trying to open doors simulator, where you basically navigate a series of corridors and try opening every door until you find one that isn't locked, which will likely contain an item that you need. Thankfully, the locations are never too huge, so it's not really an issue, and you do find maps that are updated with every step you take and every move you make. It all looks great. They use the fog effect really well here, and it definitely gives the game a creepy vibe. I never actually found this game scary, not even when I first play it, but it definitely has a great horror atmosphere and is more creepy than anything, with these strange characters and enemies that include dead children and zombified nurses. It's still a blast to play, and I think it holds up really well, and it's one that I'll always go back to when I fire up the PS1. And finally, here it is, probably one that most people were expecting to see, and for good reason. It's Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. Because man, this game really is just a timeless classic that I played the hell out of, and I guess I still do thanks to the remakes. In case you are an absolute freak and you haven't played it, it's an arcade-style skateboarding game where you choose from a whole host of professional skaters and even some really cool unlockable characters. Then you're put into a number of locations, each of which has a number of objectives for you to complete. Then you're given 2 minutes per run to see how many you can complete. But don't worry, you can try as many times as you want, and any that you do manage to finish stay complete. But after a while, you'll be able to easily beat all the goals in just one go once you've learnt the levels, and that's really damn satisfying. The goals are usually very similar across the levels. You'll need to collect letters that spell skate, get certain high scores. Usually you've got other items to collect in the levels or crash into and smash, and there's always a hidden tape to find. Some have more bespoke things, like needing to grind on bells in the school or jumping certain gaps in other levels, but even though they're kind of similar, it's never boring or repetitive. Completing goals gets you money, which you can use to upgrade your skater's stats, and the game encourages multiple playthroughs with all the characters, which you'll probably want to do anyway. And the main thing that makes the game so good are the controls, which even now are just perfect. You've got dozens of flips, grabs, grinds and more that you can do, and it's just so easy to pull off the different tricks just by pressing different directions and buttons. Putting together massive combos is so simple and fun. It is still tricky though, and you will need a bit of practice, but honestly after an hour or so most people will be reaching the high scores with relative ease and feeling pretty damn good about it. There's also a few competition levels which see you skate for 2 minutes and then you're scored on how well you do. Basically you want to do decent combos, use variety of tricks and not just the same one over and over, and of course don't fall over too often. Again, winning these just gets you more money to upgrade your skater, and you can also buy new super tricks and boards by the way. There's a lot to unlock. And the graphics here are great for the time. They go for a serious look, which is sometimes a bad idea for this generation, but here it does look good and the animation is great and smooth. The game also has a fantastic soundtrack. It's all licensed rock, punk and hip hop, which may or may not be playing right now. I don't really know until the video is uploaded if I get a copyright strike. But yeah, the music's great. And overall, the game is just brilliant, and it really is an all-time classic. The remake that came out a while ago is also incredible with some quality of life improvements, so it doesn't really matter how you play this one, just make sure you do. So there you go, those are the 10 games on the PS1 that I would say are my favourites. Now I'm sure many of you won't agree because you won't like the fact that I haven't played Final Fantasy and I didn't include Metal Gear Solid, which I have completed by the way, it's good. Or the Tekken games, because I'm just not really into 3D fighters. But that's okay, put your list in the comments below, because chances are I probably haven't played a lot of the games that are on your list and I might want to try them out. On screen now, you can see where you can follow me, so why not do so? I've got loads of great content for everyone to enjoy. And now, all that's there for me to say is thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.